Hello friends, Tanya here with another Spellbinders 10 cards club kits video, and this month the theme is Stay in Touch. Let's take a look at the small die of the month first. This is Snail Mail Post, and there is an adorable snail in this die set and a bunch of other items. Now to do the eyes, I'm putting some black backers here. I think I lost my eyeball die. According to the packaging, there should be a die for the eyes. We'll make do. I just backed it with black. I am cutting out the shell from this cardstock that I used to mop up the extra mica stain spray from my box. And it actually works really well to do the shell of a snail. Perfect. I knew I would use that somehow. I have used the same box to spray paper with my mica stain sprays for a long time. And when it would get really built up, I would use some scrap paper to pick up some of that extra ink and mica. And I have used it in a few ways. This is a perfect way. This cute little snail has pink cheeks that you can glue on. You can, of course, use markers to do that or leave that detail off completely. I've adhered the snail's shell to his body. And now we're going to, well, first you're going to watch me make a mess with my glue bottle. The cap was not screwed on tight. And then he has this satchel that you can strap to his shell. And it's a two-piece satchel to give it a little extra dimension, and you could use different colors if you wanted. I used some dark brown cardstock that was sprayed with, I think, the fallen acorn distress mica stain spray. Then we have this adorable little mail person hat, and I chose to do a band of red and a gold emblem on the center on this royal blue cardstock. I don't know what colors these were. These are again from my rainbow of paper scraps. I use that so often. I did just place an order for all of the color wheel cardstocks, and I do have the color wheel stuff to show you in another video. There's also this adorable worm, and that was, I used some cardstock that I had done some reverse or tried to do some reverse foiling on some craft cardstock, and I didn't like how it turned out, but it sure makes a cute worm. Now I'm assembling the mailbox. You can have it with the lid opening, or you can have it with the lid shut. There is also a flag that you can adhere to the mailbox. Where I live, if the flag is up, that means you have mail that needs to be picked up by the postman. Otherwise, I live in the country. So if you don't have the flag up and they don't have anything to deliver, they are just going to drive on by. There is a post for the mailbox, of course, and I did happen to die cut that from the same cardstock as I did the shell. There's also a large envelope with this cute little heart that you can put on it, and a small envelope that has return address and address lines embossed in it. There's also this lovely tulip with a stem and two different kinds of leaves, and you can use those in a variety of ways. I'm going to adhere the tulip flower to the stem, and then this is a more traditional leaf with tulips. They are these long, elongated, smooth-edged leaves, but I'm just going to throw the fun wavy-edged one on there too. I suppose that would be, you could see something similar on a tulip, but this is paper. You can make it look however you want. There's also a little arm for your snail, even though snails don't have arms. And you can make it look like he is carrying a letter. I chose the big one. This is the large die of the month, Lock and Key Mailbox, and this is adorable. I honestly wanted to use this more, but I had so many ideas for the club kits this month. It was a little brain overwhelming. And I ended up only using this mailbox once, but Again, so many ideas. So there is this interactive piece that you can use to put things in and flip up. It actually flips up. You can create some extra dimension with it. Here I'm folding that crease line back. It fits in that little slit to create this additional element. Now there's a there's a drop-in die that adds all the detail on this mailbox, and there is the outline die, so you can die cut the same thing and have a solid backer. There are two dies that die cut the words letters and note. No, not note, hello. And then there is a separate die that die cuts a slightly larger backer. I'm just getting some of the extra paper hair off of my die cut. And that is the sacrifice I make when I'm using the scrapbook.com magic mat, because my acrylic plates don't warp when I use one of the scrapbook.com magic mats, but you do get more paper hairs than you would if you used two acrylic pads. That's okay. I just use my tools to get rid of the paper hairs. Here you can see the two dies layered together, the backer that's slightly larger and the detail die. And I think that looks beautiful even when you use the same colors. There's also another piece that you can attach here on the front. Just another decorative element, and it makes it look like there might be an additional box on the front. There is a key hole here, and it's two pieces. Again, amazing detail. Adds some depth and dimension and extra detail here that makes it look so realistic. I'm layering these up. These are using some brushed gold cardstock from the Treasured Cardstock pack. I just ordered new packs of that. Additional packs, because I'm starting to run low on some of the colors. And I've had these packs for a year, and you see that I use them a ton. So yeah, well worth the purchase. There's also this little tiny paper wax seal. It cuts the heart layer that has a dropout piece and a slightly larger piece. And look at that, you have this adorable little paper wax seal you can add to your envelope. And yes, there's an envelope die in the large die of the month also. Got all kinds of different envelope sizes that you can use in this month's kits. There's also this branch of tulips, and these are 2-layer blossoms also. There's a backer and another piece that you put over the front that creates this cupped flower look like a tulip, which is perfect. I mean, we've got large tulips and we've got small tulips, and you're going to see I'm going to be able to incorporate both sizes in one card later on. I die cut these from some bright springy colors. Spring in Minnesota, it arrives later. I still have snow in my yard, and it'll melt, and then we'll get another foot of snow. So we're not out of the snow weather yet. Probably not for another, April? It probably won't be until mid-May when we don't have snow anymore at all. Now I'm just tucking these different elements into the mail slot on our cute little mailbox. There's even this adorable key. I love how that just comes together with such a detailed look. Look at that. Oh! Next is our stitching die of the month. It's called Stitched Taking Notes. And there is a piece of spiral bound paper and all of these cute little, they look like Post-it tags, and they have several different sentiments. Hello, friend, thanks, note, and there's a fifth one. I can't think of it right now. That's okay. So to sew these stitching dies together, or add the detail with the stitching dies, there are the lines for writing, and I chose a light blue, just like a traditional spiral bound notebook paper. And we're doing or I'm doing the usual method where I have much more thread used on the top of the paper and much less thread on the back. I also have this pale pink, well, not pale pink, mid-tone pink, kind of a mauve pink that we're using for the red line that I don't honestly know what that line is called. I might have to pause and look it up. Okay, I did pause and look it up. They are called the margin line. There we go. So the margin line, I am using this dusty mauve, and I'm going to weave in and out of the previously stitched lines to keep it in place. I mean, it's a really long stitch. It's going to help it stay where it needs to be, and you can't really see that it's weaving between the lines. It blends pretty well. I am using Best Ever Craft tape to secure the ends. And to store my extra thread, I just use the needle to tuck it onto the spool. Here we have our little sticky note words, and they look really cute, just lined up on the edge of that notebook paper. Next, we're going to move on to the clear Stampin' Die of the month. This is Send and Seal, and there are dies for all but one of the sentiments, and then dies for probably half of the images in this background type stamp. Now you can use this stamp and you stamp it twice to fill an entire A2 sized card front or card piece. Here I'm using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm going to stamp it on one end of this cardstock, and apparently I needed to stamp it twice. And that's a better way to go if you have fine line elements, to stamp it twice than to push harder, because when you push harder, it distorts your stamped image. So you're better off, like I said, stamping it twice. And I guess I'm going to do that again. It does make a nice sharp image when you stamp twice, especially if your ink pad might be a little dry, and mine very well could be. Now, one of the bonus features of using VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink is you can heat emboss with it. It is a pigment ink, and it stays wet for longer, and so you get this beautiful crisp image that you can then heat emboss. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this. By heat embossing it, it creates a very dark, bold outline, nice and sharp, and I could ink blend over it, I could color it, I could do lots of things with it. I do use this. You'll see it later. Just using my heat tool to melt all of that clear embossing powder that I sprinkled over the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And yes, that takes a minute. It is magical. I just love watching it turn from dull and powdery to shiny and raised. Here I've stamped the same image once on a piece of craft cardstock, and I used Hero Arts Intense Black ink. And I'm using my Copics to color in some of these images, in particular the ones that are going to be able to be die cut. Ultimately, I end up coloring all of these images, and I think I ended up stamping it a second time on this A2 sized piece of cardstock. And I do ultimately end up coloring all of the images. You'll see that much later. I think second to last card is when I'm going to use this. I don't know why I'm giving you a sneak peek on that. You can go wild with your different color options here, and they're small enough that you don't have to do a lot of shading or any shading. I think that yellow marker on the craft cardstock really makes that look like a manila envelope. And some of these look like packages with wax seals, gifts, and all kinds of cute little postage ephemera. I love that little paper airplane. And there are a couple of things that look like they could be cookies, because yes, people used to send cookies to their loved ones who lived distant. Traditionally, it was like sending cookies to your kids who are in college or away in the military. Here are all of the sentiments that are stamped and heat embossed and then die cut with their coordinating dies. And there's some really cute ones in there. This one says, letters are hugs you can hold. Next, we have the stencil of the month. This is called Airmail. There are two different designs in this set. We've got all of these letters, and this is a 4-piece. So there's 5 pieces to this stencil, and one of these stencils has components for each of the designs. So it gets used twice. I am using Salvage Patina here for the first stencil on this one. And I started out with the small or a mini ink blending brush from Altenew. And yeah, it was taking way too long, especially since I didn't need to be so particular. I did tape this down. This is designed for an A2 size card front. I wasn't going to be able to get this to stick to my sticky mat since I decided to use a larger piece of cardstock. So I used some paper tape, and this stuff is so sticky. I've used these pieces so many times. The second color I use here is Prize Ribbon, and these are distress inks, not distress oxides. Sometimes I just like to mix it up. They both work. The distress oxides they ink blend faster, and their color is more opaque. The distress inks are more vibrant. They take a little longer to ink blend, and they have a more jewel tone look to them. They don't have that chalkiness of the distress oxides. So sometimes I just like to play with the distress inks. The third color I used was Dusty Concord, and now I am using the Lisa Horton Cloud 9 metallic ink in solid gold. I still love this. When you're picking up the ink, you're doing less of a rubbing motion and more of a tapping motion off of the ink pad. And this particular stencil was the one that shares between the two designs. The center of it does the seals on the stamps, or on the letters, and when you use it for the other design, which has that airmail look all around the outside, which has alternating ribbons of color. So this one I used the gold, since I used gold on that stencil before, and I should have maybe blocked off, masked the little holes, but c'est la vie. For the second color, I chose to use Uncharted Mariner on the ribbon, alternating ribbon around the edge. So we've got this gold and navy design around an A2 sized piece of cardstock. Any layering die will easily cut them out. Next, we have the Glimmer of the month. This is Scattered Letters. There is a large background plate, which is just slightly larger than an A2 size piece of cardstock. I, of course, am going to do a half sheet of cardstock. I have some Desert Storm craft cardstock here, and some blush foil, which I think looks amazing on craft. I also had like 6 rolls of blush. So I developed a love of blush on craft. So I've secured this to half of this piece of 8.5 by 5.5 piece of cardstock. We've foiled the first end, and now I'm going to just slap it on there. There is no way to match up the pattern, but it is such a chaotic pattern that you really can't tell. It doesn't matter. So, perfect. Just slap it on there. No need to worry about how it lines up in the middle. Just going to make sure my foil covers underneath the whole plate. Ran that through again after the platform heated up and the minute timer went off. Actually, once you heat it up the first time, you don't have to keep doing the minute timer. That was a close-up of the overlap of the detailed or the design, and you really can't tell the difference. Again, my favorite way to do smaller, repetitive foiling, I lay them on a piece of white copy paper, and then I can just put the foil on top and lay an A2 size piece of cardstock matching up with the white copy paper underneath, and then I don't have to tape anything down. There is a coordinating die that die cuts all of these, all 2 of these sentiments, and I had used some opaque white foil on black cardstock to do these 2 sentiments. I did foil them a bunch of times on white craft and black, in a variety of foils, so I would have them easily accessible for later. The Club Extra is the layered scattered mail stencil set. So I have a piece of white cardstock that I foiled with Aura foil. And I have my Altenew 9x12 sticky mat here and a piece of acetate scrap that covers half of this sheet of cardstock, because this, of course, is a design that is one A2 size piece at a time. So I'm just going to show you how I did one half of this because I had foiled it twice. I used Salvage Patina. Now I have Uncharted Mariner. This is a 4-piece layering set. So there's a different color for each layer, and that will cover the entire piece of cardstock. Here we've got Prize Ribbon. I'm really loving these colors together. I just kind of randomly grabbed these. I didn't have any real plan. I wanted some true blues, a teal, and a purple, going with that whole cool tones look. Often when I am picking colors, I'm either going cool or warm tones, and analogous, meaning touching each other on the color wheel. That is if you want to make sure your designs always look color coordinated, that is one of the easy ways to do it. Next, we're going to play with the 3D wax seal of the month. It's called Petal Postage, and it's a beautiful rectangular shape with kind of a gingham pattern. I got blue smoke beads with my set, and the second color I'm going to use is Glitzy Gold. So I have my 2 chimneys set up. I have my metal palette knife. I've heated up both the wax seal, the knife, and the actual beads, of course. And I'm going to start with the gold. I've poured that on, and I'm using my warm palette knife to scrape off any of the excess. And this will fill in the detailed design of this wax seal. So we'll have 2 different colors of wax going. Once I have that filled and scraped off, then I clean off the knife, making sure to heat it up a little bit to get the extra wax off. And we have craft spoons. These are silicone spoons. They do have some firmness to them. And I got these with my wax seals probably, I don't know if it was for this month or next month or the month before, but I know that they are sending sometimes not wax beads, but another tool associated with wax sealing. And we're going to see how that works out. Now, for the second part of my seal, I put some of that blue smoke bead down in a puddle that was roughly an elongated oval. And look how easy it is to scrape out that extra wax with this silicone spoon. Awesome. I love it. I'll do that with the second one. I just pour them out on my glass. This is a large glass candle stand that I have had for decades. And now it doesn't have anything to do with candles, but I use it all the time as my platform, my pouring spot for my wax seals. It is a nice cold, solid surface that the wax is easy to release from. Now that I have my cool wax seal, I'm peeling that off, and look at the detail. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, if you don't want to do the business of 2 different colors of wax sealing, you can just use a permanent marker to color the raised portion. This is the Better Press of the month, which when I started this, I did not have the post edge expression. I did not have that yet. I had my packaging already. So I'm going to use the Feather Dream from the Dina Wakley Mixed Media that came out last month, and we're also going to use the Nested Postage Labels and Die. So this is not the same, but it has a scripty element, and it has the postal edge. On our first card, here you can see my planning. I'm using the small die of the month and the clear Stampin' die of the month. We're going to use that sentiment. And we're also using the Scattered Letters Glimmer of the month. We're going to use the sentiment from that and the background that we just finished ink blending. We're going to use the 5x7 Matting Basics Set B, the largest die from that, to die cut our background. We're going to use the nested postage labels and tag die here. We've got some vellum for the postage edge and some white cardstock for the for the matting layer. And we're going to use the perforated edges embossing folder of the month to create some texture on that white panel. There we've got our die cut and ink blend, we're going to ink blend some Salvage Patina Distress inks on this die cut and embossed area. I just want a little bit of color highlighting behind our main images. I have added some extra cardstock behind this beautifully glimmer foiled and ink blended background. We'll add that to our 5x7 heavyweight white cardstock base. Just using the pokey end of my pickup tool. This happens to be a Trinity Stamps pickup stick. I know that Pink Fresh Studios has a similar one. I think they're all made by the same companies. They just have different branding and different colors on them. It's just a embellishment tool with a wax tip on one end and a pointy tool on the other end that you can use for die ejection and just for nudging things with your pointy end. Someone asked me what brand the pickup stick I used was, and yes, Trinity Stamps. They used to have replacement tips. They don't anymore, I don't think. But I think they all work pretty much the same. I've added extra layers of cardstock between each of these layers, and the snail is the one we assembled at the beginning of this video, so I don't even have to assemble that. This card is coming together so quickly because I'm using so many elements that I demonstrated at the beginning of this video. We've got our letter. We're going to have him hold. I've added a little extra cardstock, just a smidge. Usually I don't show you this part because it's super boring, and it is not complicated. I just take little snippets of scrap cardstock and glue them behind the elements before I attach them to the card. Next, we're going to do the inside of our card. This is the Stamp Wheel 2.0. My favorite parts of this are that it's large enough to hold a 5x7 card, open, and that you can remove one side. So it can be an open-sided stamping platform, so it doesn't matter what size cardstock you have, unless it's 12 by 12, it will work. Even an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock will fit in here sideways because it's a 9-inch by 9-inch base, or not base, stamping area. I've got my sentiment that I'm going to stamp in the middle of my inside of my card, and I am, of course, doing 2 stampings because I can't not, I feel like. And then we're going to add our cute little worm on the inside also. I just think he is adorable. So cute. Now that I have him inside, now it's time to add some little jelly hearts. These are from Trinity Stamps also, Blackberry Bliss Jelly Heart. I bought these probably 2 or 3 years ago. I have so many embellishments in my stash. I do need to use them, and I used to worry about what company I was working with when I created my projects, but you know what? I am never going to use all these embellishments if I don't just start using them no matter who else I'm working with. These hearts have a frosted and a clear version, and they look adorable. Card number 2, we're going to use the Lock and Key Mailbox. This is the one I assembled earlier, and I did not put the backer on at that time. I have the Spellbinders multi-purpose scoring board. This is the one that I showed you a few videos back that you could use the coordinating. There's a tool that comes with it that helps you make envelopes of any size. Well, I'm just using the scoring portion here. This was about 3/4 of an inch from the top of the backer, and I'm adding glue on the back of the detailed piece, and we're going to create a cute little shaped card here. This is just a little card. It's maybe note card size, so 3.5 by 5 inch roughly. And we're going to take these elements, and I want 2 letters being tucked in here that covers the entire hole. I'm dry fitting this to see how best it'll work. I add a little bit of glue to the top envelope and we'll stick those together. Now I'm going to add a line of glue on the inside of that flap so I can adhere all of these elements to the flap with just that one line of glue. I've got the key and 1 branch of tulip flowers, and we'll just put a heavyweight block on top of that. Oh yeah, I put a little piece of acrylic there so it wouldn't adhere to the rest of the card, so this flap still lifts. Now I'm going to do some reinforcement of that fold in the back here. Next, I'm going to pull out, I'm sitting there thinking what I want to do. We're going to use the Send and Seal Clear Stamp of the Month to add a sentiment to the front. This is already stamped, heat embossed, and die cut. And this says, what did it say? Well, I've got 2 extra layers of cardstock here that I'm going to add a little extra depth and dimension before we adhere that to the front of the card. And it fits so perfectly right under all of those elements on the flap. We'll just adhere those. And I think it ended up being a little bit crooked. Next, I got these gift card pockets a month or 2 ago, and I haven't used them yet. It comes in a pack of 12. I think it's just under $6 for this pack, and they are so slick. Oh my gosh. Just going to adhere this. It's a peel and stick gift card pocket, so you can turn any card into a gift card holder. I just have this old hotel key that didn't get turned in. And you can see how easily that just slides right in. We're going to use a sub-sentiment here. You know, I've got the card sitting next to me. Why don't I just be smart and pick it up and look at it? This says, open for a happy surprise. And on the inside, it says, just a friendly reminder someone is thinking of you. For card number 3, I'm going to pull out the Saltwater Taffy, Squeezed Lemonade, and Salvage Patina inks, and we're going to use the Feather Dream. Now, if you have the club kit of the month, the Post Edge Expression, you can use that instead. But this is what I had at the moment. I have a piece of watercolor cardstock, a 5x7 piece of watercolor cardstock, tacked down to my Better Press system. And I didn't have to do that before I did the ink blending, but here we are. I'm going to do a rainbow inking here. It doesn't actually blend that much to give you the other colors, but these are the 3 primary colors. We've got a pink, a yellow, and a blue. And now we're going to use the solid gold Cloud 9 metallic ink from Lisa Horton. I have the Scripty press plate. You could foil this also, but I just wanted to do the press plate, which is faster, honestly, than foiling. But look at that. It looks so beautiful. I wanted a soft look. That's why I wanted to do the press plate. We're going to use the Stitched Take Note die, and we're going to die cut a notebook piece of paper here out of this pressed image. This is going to look like a piece of notebook paper that has been written on. I'm just going to carefully line up that drop-in die and use some low-tack tape. This happens to be the Best Ever Craft tape. I'm pulling it off of the mirror. Lots and lots of pieces of tape up there that I'm using over and over again. Now we have the lines pressed in. You wouldn't have to do the stitching, but I decided to give it a try, see how it looks. So same way I did before, actually the same colors even. Just going to stitch this up, and you are going to need more than 1 thread because it takes a lot of thread to do the lines all the way up. So I did have to rethread my needle a couple of times for the blue. And now we'll use that margin line in the pink. And again, I will weave in and out, over and under all of these blue lines to get the margin line to stay exactly where I want it to stay. Oops, it looped over the spiral notebook edge. I have to rethread my needle And shockingly, I was not wearing cheaters to do that. As long as I can still thread a needle without cheaters, I feel like I don't have to get bifocals. Anybody else feel that way? Oh, wow, the things we do. Okay, now that we have that element done, we need to create a background. So we're going to use the 5x7 Matting Basics Set B, the largest of those, and the Postage Magic 3D embossing folder of the month. I love this embossing folder. I use it so many times in this video, but wow, yes, so cool. This is the Pearl Luster Gilding Polish. You could use Astro Paste, not Astro Paste, Solar Paste, the lighter colored, to create this same look relatively, and those are all tinted with a color that shows when you turn it in the light. This is just a pearly color, and I have it, and it has this easy little applicator. Now you could do this with your finger with the lunar and solar pastes, and I do that later. This was just going for a subtle textural look. I add some extra cardstock on the back of this, and now I'm going to adhere this to a 5x7 white card base. Just adding some glue to this, and here is my card base. Just going to line that up and try to get my edges even. And then I will use a couple of misties to add some extra weight to make sure that adheres well. We will also use the Send and Seal Clear Stamp and Die of the Month. We have a couple of sentiments here, just a friendly reminder. Someone is thinking of you, and we're going to stack up a couple extra layers of black cardstock behind it. If you have the scraps to layer the same color behind your sentiment, that is always the best, but I often don't want to use up my colored cardstock. Now the black, I happened to have some small pieces that I didn't have any problem cutting up. Is anyone else stingy with their colored cardstock? I mean, that stuff can be kind of expensive. This is size for an A2 sized card. The whole notebook piece will fit. It is A2 sized, but we're using it on a 5x7 card here, and I think it works just fine. I'm just going to tilt that a little bit. I added a couple extra layers of cardstock. Those were some behind it to add a little extra height and dimension. And now we're going to use the feathers from the Feather Dream press plate set from Dina Wakley. Just because I had it out, I thought, man, that would look really cute. Feathers they represent free-spiritedness and dreaming to me. That's what the kind of feeling I get from feathers. And I thought this was a lovely touch. I'm using Distress Oxide inks here because the Distress inks don't work as well. They aren't, it takes more ink, I think, more than one pressing. So I'm cleaning these feathers without moving them. It has a very nice strong magnet, but I have one finger on there as I'm cleaning, and then I'm going to add some solid gold metallic ink to these feathers, and we're going to run it through the press or through the die cut machine. We're going to press them a second time to get some gold details on our feathers. I thought that looked really cool. And then, because I could, I did another pressing of just gold, and then I die cut them with their coordinating dies. And we're going to use all but one of these feathers on this card. I'm just adhering two of the colorful and one of the gold feathers to the outside of our card, and I think that really looks cute. They also seem to fit in with that handwritten calligraphy aesthetic, because feather plume calligraphy, writing with a feather is an idea we all have of the olden times. Now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to place these feathers, and ultimately I'm not super satisfied with this, but this is what I did. I did a gold and a yellow, framing the inside right of the card, just making sure that the ends of my feathers don't interfere with the crease or hang out beyond. We're also going to use some Color Essential Gems in Peach Blush. This is one of my favorite colors. It almost looks gold. It has that peachy, browny, goldy look to it. And we're going to add a scattering of these gems across the front of the card. And I am not shy about using a bunch of them. I think I used, let me count, 4 plus 3 is 7. 7. A nice uneven number. That seems to be the most pleasing. And it makes your eye follow across the card. On to card number 4. I was feeling mixed media today. We are using Uncharted Mariner in both the Distress Oxide Spray and the Distress Spray, which you'd think it's the same color. It would be pointless, but oh my gosh, it is different. And I used watercolor cardstock for this, and I'm going to add some spatters to add some extra interest to this, and those sprays are both reactive to the water. You're going to get different reactions from each of those inks. I'm going to dry this with my heat tool, and I'm going to say right now, I went a little overboard when I sprayed those inks. There is so much extra ink. I was getting it all over my hands. Even when this was dry, I was still picking up more of that spray. But that's okay. It turned out beautiful. And once I finished messing with it, once it was on the card, I stopped getting extra ink all over myself. That's okay. I don't mind getting inky. It washes off. And honestly, I made this card, and then I went downstairs and I did some food prep for the week, part of which was cutting up an entire head of red cabbage. So I had just gotten the blue ink off my hands, and then I had purple cabbage dye all over my hands. So, inky, food staining, it's all good. Next, I am going to stick this down to my Better Press platform here. And we are going to use the, this is my substitute for the Better Press of the month. I'm using the Feather Dream. Now, if you have the Better Press of the month, you could use that instead. But this is what I've got. That's the closest equivalent. So I'm going to ink this up with the solid gold. I've been really loving this solid gold metallic ink for Better Pressing this month. So I pressed it once, and look at that. Oh, it looks so good. We're going to ink it up again, and we're going to rotate that plate 180 degrees, and we're going to run it through a second time, and we will have a completely pressed written background. We're going to use the Precision Layering A2 dies. I'm going to use the third from largest in set A to die cut not only the blue background. Oh no, I'm using, what am I doing? Yes, we're going to layer these together. I'm also going to use the set B, and we're going to die cut a slightly larger panel for the blue. And we're all going to ignore the fact that when I die cut this, it got a little crooked and I'm missing a little bit of a corner here. Just ignoring that. I did see it. I had planned to layer something over the top of it in that corner, and I didn't, but we're just going to pretend it's not there. I'm layering these two pieces together, and the wonderful thing of the precision layering sets is it's an 1/8 of an inch increment, so you can get a very nice small border here. Now, since I'm not using a specialty cardstock, I didn't worry about cutting out the center. It was just a piece of white cardstock. I also used the largest die in those layering sets to die cut out that stenciled airmail piece, and we're adhered that to our card base, and it covers the entire card front. And now we're going to layer up these last two layers. I don't think I put extra cardstock behind that, did I? Nope, I think it's just directly on it. That was a lot of layers. And then we're going to use some elements from the Lock and Key Mailbox, the large die of the month. We're also going to use a sentiment from the Scattered Letters Glimmer of the month. And on the inside, we're going to use a sentiment from the Send and Seal Clear Stampin' Die of the month. And we're going to use the Wax Seal of the month. This beautiful blue and gold works very well. I added some extra cardstock behind the blossoms of the tulip branches here. and I have a yellow branch and a blue branch that we're going to adhere to the front of the card. I have a second yellow branch of tulips that we'll put on the inside of the card. I'm just kind of crisscrossing the stems, and we will glue the wax seal over the stem portion of our branches, so it looks like the wax seal is holding our flowers to the card. I've added extra cardstock behind our mailing you a big hello and adhering that to the front of the card below our floral stem. This adds some, it's pretty close to even spacing between the top and the bottom of empty space. Next, we're going to adhere the yellow flowers to the inside of the card. I'm doing this kind of a little high centered, and then we'll layer the sentiment over the stem. This says, wishing you a day as sweet as this letter. There's some really great sentiments in that stamp set. We're also going to use the Sapphire A and B Color Essential Gems. I use these a lot this month, a variety of different gems, sequins, and embellishments. And we're going to add, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It's not an uneven number. It is an even number, but it actually looks pretty nice. Maybe it's because one of them is below. Well, you're just seeing me put scatters of gems across the front of the card. There isn't a ton of planning. I just have a general way that I like to do it. Usually it's a diagonal across the front. On to card number 5. I finally did get the Postal post edge expressions, and we're going to do some fun things. I pulled out this multicolor ink pad that I had in my stash. It came in a kit from Hero Arts. It's not something you can get again, but if you are a subscriber to Hero Arts and had been for quite some time, you probably have this ink pad in your stash. And if not, you can replicate this look, the stripes, with a flat brush and watercolor. You can do it with ink cubes. There's lots of ways to do it. Now, I didn't want to waste this extra ink on my surface, so I sprayed some water on it, and I'm using another piece of watercolor cardstock to pick up the ink. I dry it between ink smooshing layers, and that's how you get a buildup of color and pattern on these backgrounds. I'm not showing you the drying sessions between, but that's all from the same inking. Now, I really liked this ink smooshed background. It's a 5x7 piece of cardstock. I'm going to use the Better Press of the Month scripted piece, and we're going to ink it 4 times. We have to shift it once to do 4 inkings here. It's in one quadrant of this platform. So I've done 1 inking. I'm going to ink it up. I'll rotate this 180 degrees, put it back through the die cut machine. Now we've got opposite corners. So I'm going to slide this plate over to a different quadrant, re-ink. Now I don't have to rotate because we're in a different position. Run that through again, and we'll ink up one more time. Now we'll rotate 180 degrees and run it through our die cut machine again, and we have a completely pressed background. Next, I'm going to take the postage mosaic embossing folder. I did mention that I love this embossing folder. So we're going to run that through. This is a 3D embossing folder. I'm trying to pick the area that I want most. Before I run it through, we're going to use one of the precision layering mini slim lines. Or you can just cut this down to 3 1/8 by 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. Now I had some extra ink in the embossing folder when I was done, and I thought, let's play with that idea. So I'm using that same ink pad to add ink to the inside of the embossing folder. Now this is the side that has the Spellbinders logo on it. You could reverse it, but this is what I decided to do. I had run it through after I did that first one, and it left to pick up some of the ink that was left behind, but it didn't leave much. So full on inked the inside and spritzed the embossing folder to add a little bit of a watercolor movement to that. And oh gosh, I love how that turned out. Now, I did do it a second and a third time, and I did spray the cardstock instead of the folder one of those times. And you can see how easily that cleans up. Next, we're going to take that very first panel and we're going to do some lunar and solar paste. I started out with the solar paste, but honestly, you could barely see it on this very bold background. So I pulled out the lunar paste, and this is slippery when wet. The other color is golden hour. That is, I only have golden hour in the solar paste, and I have 4 colors of the lunar paste. I have not allowed myself to get all of them because I don't have a place to store them. My drawer for these kinds of things is full. And I'm really trying not to just purchase more things than I can store. My craft area is so full that I really need to do a purge, but there's nothing I want to get rid of. Anybody else have that problem? Plus, I still keep having things come into my craft area. Oh, such a first world problem, right? More toys than I can play with? Well, no, I can play with them all. I really can. Yeah. I have added some extra cardstock behind this layer, and I am adhering it to my mini slimline card base, which is 3.5 by 6.5 inches. And I have foiled the sentiments from the Better Press of the month. They each have a coordinating die. Again, love that. I foiled them with polished brass on craft cardstock. And I'm not going to use all of these sentiments on this card, but why not cut them all out while I've got them? I've got some extra layers of craft cardstock to layer behind this piece that's going to be the front of my card, the sentiment for the front. It says, "A note just for you." And I love how the slippery when wet really highlights the embossed detail. It is like a whole bunch of different postage stamps with lots of different motifs, and they're so cute. I love this embossing folder. Really, really love it. I'm adhering that sentiment on the front of the card, and it is a really bold card front. It doesn't really need much. I add my heavyweight block to add some extra pressure there. Here is one of the other panels that I inked and then ran through the embossing folder. I inked the embossing folder, not the paper. And this is what we got. Just beautiful. And I'm going to cut out this strawberry to put on the inside of the card. I am so allergic to strawberries, but I really love creating paper strawberries. They are safe for me. I'm using the golden hour on this, and it works quite nicely. Adding just a little bit of sheen to the raised portions, and since these are not as intense for colors and there's a bigger contrast, it actually has the desired effect. Inside, this says, "Wishing you a day as sweet as this letter." For finishing touches, we're going to use the Peach Opalescent Color Essential Sequins. I'm just going to add a scattering of these across the front using my pickup stick and my precision fine tip glue bottle, and I've got Barely Art Precision Glue in this, my favorite combo. And with sequins, they are pretty flat and they don't interfere with the closing of your card any more than cardstock die elements that you add. So I'm adding a scattering of sequins to the inside of my card. I started doing that a few months ago, and I'm probably not ever going to stop. It is a fun surprise to open your card and see that extra little bit of bling on the inside. Now that would make a cute card front too. On to card number 6. We are going to cut down this piece of cardstock. I want to make this into 2 4-bar cards. Now, in order for this to fit in a 4-bar envelope that you don't make yourself, you do have to make this finished card size a different size. So here I am cutting it down to layer on the correct size for the envelopes. And this one, I cut too much off of one side. So go back and we'll trim this so we have even margins all the way around the card. There we go. This one's just going to have a slightly wider white margin. And then for our second piece, this one's going to have a smaller margin because I'm going to pay attention here. The correct size when you layer it. So I'm going to trim this down. This is a 5x7 piece of cardstock that I scored at 3.5 inches. Well, in order to fit in the envelope, it has to be 3.5 by 4 7/8. So there you go. Here I have my two matted pieces, and this is a purchased 4-bar card envelope, or a note card size, I think is what it's called. So now I find a pencil and I am going to show you the correct size if you want to not have to make your own envelopes. 3.5 by 4 7/8 is what the card base can be. We're going to pull out the small die of the month, Snail, Mail, Post, and we're going to use some of these elements that I've already cut out. I have a shell here that we're going to do some opal polish in Golden Flamingo. This is available in the Spellbinders shop. It is pink on white cardstock and gold on black cardstock, which is a fun little combination. I really like the pink that it has. It's like this shell pink, which is perfect for the shell that I have here. So now that I have gilding polished this, I am going to heat it with my heat tool just because I want it to dry a little faster. This stuff does dry pretty fast, but I put a lot of pink on there. It is a light pink and I wanted a nice solid coverage. I've added some extra cardstock behind that shell to make it even when we adhere it to the card front. I added some extra cardstock, just some scraps behind the panel here that we're going to adhere to our 4-bar card. I really love that background. Again, very much into the mixed media this month. Now we'll start assembling our snail directly on our card front. I added some extra cardstock, of course, behind our little snail. I find that adding a little bit of extra dimension behind your elements, your images, really helps them stand out on your card. Adds that a little bit of extra definition. Now there's extra cardstock behind the shell, I think 1 or 2 extra layers. And then we're going to use the clear stamp and die of the month. Man, stutter much. Yeah. Extra layers behind the sentiment. It says snail mail hugs coming your way. They do such a good job of adding sentiments that coordinate with several of the clubs in the stamp sets. I really enjoy having sentiments that work well with your images. It just really helps. Inside the card, we're going to add a sentiment stamped directly on the cardstock. And since this will fit in one of my Misties, I am not using the stamp wheel. You can use whatever you have. I have all of them. Well, not all. I have 3 brands. I have the Misty, I have the Altenew stamp wheel, and I have the open-sided Stampin' Up! One that I don't need to even use anymore because I have the stamp wheel with the side that comes off. Next, we're using the boiled sugar hearts from Trinity Stamps. These have 3 different sizes of hearts in it, and I am using those to the best of my ability. And again, I am trying to use up some of my embellishments because I have so many. And why would we purchase them if we're not going to use them? On to card number 7. We're going to use that second piece that we cut down for a 4-bar card. We're going to use Send and Seal for another sentiment. We're going to use, well, we did use the Post Edge Expression to do that silver letterpressing of the writing on the background. I used some press and seal once I had that main image put together the way I wanted it. Now I'm just going to kind of use the hinge method with the press and seal here. I added some extra cardstock and glue to the back layer. And once I have that adhered, I'm folding back the press and seal for each element, adding extra cardstock behind each of these elements and adhering them back down. This works so well, especially when you really like your arrangement and you don't want to change a thing about it, especially since I do my videoing with my phone. So if I tried to take a photo to look at it, to refer to how I created this image, then I would be out of luck because I am using my phone to do the videotaping. I added extra cardstock behind the sentiment that's going to lay over the juncture of all of those leaves on the stem. And I decided to assemble all of this before we adhere it to the card front because I wanted to be able to trim off anything that hung beyond this mixed media matte layer. Now I'm just tucking in the letters into our bouquet of flowers. This says, "Sending cheer wrapped in paper and ink." There's an extra layer of cardstock behind that watercolored and better pressed background, and we'll adhere that to our 4-bar card base. And then inside we have the little tulips from Lock and Key Mailbox. See, I'm using both sizes of tulips on one card here. And we have an envelope from the small die of the month. And we're taking some sentiments from Holding Your Heart Sentiments. This is from the Dina Wakley collection that just came out last month. There are 2 press plates and 1 die that die cut all of these sentiments. I am going to use some VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink and some watercolor cardstock here. You could use the cotton letterpress paper if you want. I just have gobs of some inexpensive watercolor cardstock that works very well. And here are all of those sentiments die cut using those dies. And now I'm going to pick out a sentiment for the inside of this card. I have an envelope and these tulips and the sentiment that says "Sparkle Like You Mean It," and we're going to adhere those to the inside of the card. I have the tulips tucked behind the envelope the way I like it, so I'm going to adhere those together. And then we'll add our sentiment just like so. Don't have to add much to the inside of this card with that kind of arrangement. Next, we're going to use the Graphite Color Essential Gems. I have all of my Color Essential Gems in that mug that you can see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen here. So when I feel like I need an embellishment, I can quickly and easily grab those. And it just helps remind me that I have these adhesive-backed rhinestones that I can throw on my projects very easily, and I don't have to go dig for them. I had to move them there so I would stop forgetting that I had them, so I would start using them more because they are cool. Next, for card number 8, we're going to cut apart some of these embossed postage stamp type images. Now I trimmed close to the border, and the nested postage labels and tag, there's one die that matches with just, I think, 2 or 3 of the elements from this embossing folder. So I die cut it first with gold, and I thought I was going to use it on this mini slimline card from earlier, and it didn't look right. So this element is being used on this card. So I chose brushed white cardstock and as my backer, the back layer. And we're going to use the Slippery When Wet Lunar Paste to add some definition to this. And I really like how that looks. We've got this beautiful rainbow inking on the background. And then for the raised portions, I'm highlighting those with this beautiful gold lunar paste. And it's really easy. And again, I like to get my fingers dirty, so this doesn't bother me one little bit. Just using my fingertip to apply a little bit of this lunar paste to the raised edges. And if I get it on the background a little bit too, not a big deal. And this is watercolor cardstock that I use to do the embossing and ink blending. So it's a nice sturdy cardstock to begin with. Almost done. It does take a minute or two, but the results are so worth it. I added extra cardstock behind each of these layers, and I'm going to adhere those together. And you'll see how nicely this layers on there. Just a little happy coincidence. Next, we're going to take I actually have the postage edge now, so I can play with it. I have a piece of white watercolor cardstock. I've laid those 2 press plates in, and we're going to use some solid gold metallic ink again to press this background onto the white watercolor cardstock. Just making sure it has a really good solid inking. I want that border to show up very nicely. We'll run that through the die cut machine, and look at that. It never ceases to amaze me how gorgeous better pressing is. We're going to use the largest precision layering A2 size die to die cut this out. So this will cover the front of an A2 size card. We of course are not going to do that. We're going to use this on a 5x7 card because that is my favorite size. Now I have 3 elements from the postage mosaic that we have done the same treatment to. I did not have coordinating postage edge dies to create backers for the second 2. I did use that nested postage labels and tag die for the backer of the mushroom one. We're also going to use the perforated stamp edges embossing folder. And I thought we would use some craft cardstock to back that and die cut it with the 5x7 Matting Basics largest die. That was my plan. But as you can see, I'm kind of laying things out to see if they will work well together. I have my arrangement for the main images. I did not like that color. It didn't match the gold of the solid gold well enough, so we're going with watercolor cardstock. I embossed that with the postage edge embossing folder. I'm adhering that to a 5x7 card front or card base. I did add extra cardstock behind each of these layers, some scraps again, and we'll adhere our better pressed portion right over the top of the embossed portion. And I just really like the texture in that background behind the better pressed portion. And now we're going to add extra cardstock layers behind our sentiment, which says a friendly reminder that someone is thinking of you. That is a really, it's a great sentiment. It works for all kinds of things. And there is a version of that sentiment in the clear Stampin' die. I have noticed that they've started doing similar sentiments in the Better Press, the clear Stampin' die, and the Glimmer of the month. So if you only get one of them, you are going to get at least one sentiment that's close to some from the other sets. Now I did need to trim off some corners here so I could fit our mushroom one in there just the way I wanted it. I have an extra piece of cardstock down the center of the back of this to help even out all the layers on the card front. Next we'll add our sentiment, and I had carefully chosen how I wanted these all placed so it would fit nicely and not hide all of that better pressed texture in the background. And I need a couple more pieces from the postage mosaic 3D embossing folder piece here. So I'm just cutting these apart and trimming it close to those postage edge areas. I ultimately end up cutting all of this apart, but I'm only going to use 2 of these on this card. I could keep creating with this. It is so pretty. I love how this turned out. I hope you do some experimenting with yours. Even if it isn't this embossing folder, if you've got embossing folders that do lots of images together, this is a really beautiful way to use them. I've chosen these two to use on the inside. I did do the slippery when wet lunar paste on those also, and we'll just adhere those to the inside of the card, slightly overlapping each other. Now this watercolor cardstock really likes glue. It adheres really easily. We're going to take another of those holding your heart sentiments, which I always make these quick and easy sentiment organizers, and I will try to remember to link that a video showing how I made those. I'll try to remember. 1 minute, no, 1 hour, 10 minutes, 20 seconds. I got to write that down. And there we have our sentiment on the inside. It says, "You matter more than you know." Next, we're going to add some crystal essential gems, or sorry, color essential gems in the crystal mix. And apparently I've almost used up one whole sheet of that, and I'd started on another. I must like those iridescent gems more than the kind of cloudy, milky white ones. They're both beautiful though. I'm adding a nice spattering. I am not being shy on these cards, although a 5x7 card can hold a lot of things. There are 3, 6, 9, 12. I think I used 12 gems on here. I don't know why I'm counting them this time. Card number 9 is going to heavily feature the Send and Seal Clear Stamp and Die. This is the panel that I stamped and heat embossed at the beginning. We're going to use the watercolor mixing set. We're going to use the gold watercolor out of this one. I'm going to use my Ranger Perfect Pearls paintbrush. I've had this forever. It has stood up to this heavy abuse for a long time, many years. I'm using it to get this paint in the thickness and consistency that I want, and I'm spattering it all over the cardstock. I will let that dry, which it does pretty quickly, cleaning my brush and my work surface before I move on. And you can see the beautiful spatter on there. And next, I'm using, in this particular instance, I'm using the Blooming Heart. This is the large die of the month from December of 2022. And you can see that I have cut out all of these elements, and we're going to glue those to the white cardstock. Now, after I put this together, I realized that I could have used the heart that came out last year, or last month, or 2 months ago in the Kelly Bangs series. That is a nice large heart also. I just have used this one a few times, and so it was the first one that came to mind. Now I'm just taking all of these elements that I've die cut and or fussy cut myself, because not all of these images have a coordinating die. And once I got to going at cutting these out of the craft cardstock that I had colored them on, I just couldn't stop. I had this idea in my head that I was going to do exactly what I'm doing right here, covering a background that I'd already stamped with this background with die cut and fussy cut images from the same pattern, just to add that extra dimension and the extra color. I love how this turned out. And then I had to come up with a good shape. And what shape is better when you're sending some happy mail than a heart? So there we go. And I have the die that I'm going to die cut this out with laying on the cardstock to kind of guide me for where I need to add extra presents. Because if I don't need to glue it down, then I'm not going to. Although there I did right there. And then I realized it won't actually be in the shape. So I took that off. I'm going to save it to use on the inside of the card. I'm just going to continue adding these packages and letters to the background until I fill the entire heart. Now I don't have the heart dies, the nesting heart dies from Spellbinders. And I don't know if the largest one is big enough to die cut the size that I wanted. This is going to, of course, be another 5x7 card because that is the size that I love the most. But you could certainly use whatever heart dies you have in your stash. I have had the nested heart dies in my basket many times, but I've been crafting for a long time. So I have nesting heart dies that just aren't Spellbinders. And it's hard for me to justify purchasing something that I already have unless it's going to serve a specific purpose. Now, the reason I put it in and out of my cart is because there is a foiling plate that is that size that I could use it for. All right, yammer. Now I have this piece of craft cardstock that I have glimmered with the scattered letters. I did it twice on this 8.5 by 5.5 piece of cardstock, so I have a larger size to work with. And I'm going to pull out the Colorful Expression Sentiments from August 2024 and the Everyday Sentiments. These are two sets of sentiment dies that coordinate pretty well together. I'm also going to use the Rose Gold Assorted Treasured Cardstock in glitter and I think that is matte. Matte rose gold, and we'll use those to do our sentiments. The blush foil coordinates really well with the rose gold treasured cardstocks, so I thought this was a natural coordination. I'm just adding little dots of glue on the back of our detailed portion of the sentiment before I adhere it to the shadow portion. And I did die cut an extra layer of the shadow portion that we will add to the back of this right away because I wanted that little bit of extra dimension behind it. Now the treasured cardstocks are a little heavier than your regular cardstock to begin with, so I only need one extra layer. The hugs and the enclosed are slightly different sizes, and I actually like that. They work really well together. And they're very similar in style, that kind of swoopy, bubbly look. So it was really nice to be able to combine these two die sets to add two different sizes in your fonts for the background or for the sentiment. And I'm just laying these on here to see how well I like it before we start adhering everything to our 5x7 white card base. Now this is going to be a landscape card. I don't do a ton of those, especially in the 5x7 size. I'm not sure why. I think, I'm not sure why, but this plays very well that way. And it was partially determined by the direction of the heart seals on the envelopes on that background. It just really seemed to play better to a landscape orientation than to a portrait. Especially since the main image is this large heart. I thought it would coordinate pretty nicely with that little heart seal on the foiled background. Now that everything is adhered to the front, we'll add some sentiments or a sentiment and some of those extra die cut and hand cut envelopes and packages to the inside of the card. As you know, I do love to decorate the inside of my card just as much as I enjoy decorating the front of the card. I'm just going to use my reverse tweezers, which I have to have reverse tweezers and my pickup stick in order to do my creating because it just makes my life so much easier. There are several, I used way more letters and packages on the inside of this card than I thought I was going to. And these little tiny elements, this like postage stamp and cookie or seal, they get to play on the inside of the card too. You'll have to tell me if you think this is too much on the inside of the card. I really had a good time putting all of those elements in. I tried to use everything. Didn't succeed. We're going to use the Peach Blush Color Essential Gems again here. And if you don't have these, but you do have some sparkly bits in your stash, feel free to use whatever you've got. I don't know if anybody else is going to want to recreate this card, but it sure is fun. I like to watch videos to get ideas that I can then turn into my own ideas. And I do not mind if someone completely copies my ideas. You know, I spent entirely too much time finding this die, sealed twine, and we're going to use it to die cut some treasured cardstock in gold. We're also going to use the postage mosaic. I told you I love this embossing folder. I cut this twice, the twine, excuse me, with the gold foil, and here I'm just kind of testing if the seal will cover this circular spot completely. And I think it will. So I'm going to glue these two circular spots together, and then we're going to glue them to the front of the card. This is going to be a panel that's layered on some other elements. Just going to glue the circle part. It was a little crooked, but you know what? It doesn't matter. This is twine that's wrapped around your card. Just paper twine. And I'm just going to use that bar on the end to adhere it to the back of the card front. That is an amazing feature of this die. You don't have to worry about any fussy gluing on those very thin strips. Just have that circular portion and these end bars to help adhere them to whatever you're adding that to. Now I want to add one extra layer of dimension behind this panel to even out the layers of cardstock because we have the twine wrapped around the back. I had already added some extra cardstock to this, but yeah, I could have waited. I didn't. Therefore, extra dimension. Oh, break my heart, right? Now that I have all of that nice and even, we can adhere this to the next portion. I had actually die cut a piece that is about 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 that we're going to mat this on. And this was brushed white cardstock. So it's a pearlized white cardstock. And I had cut out the center of it with another of the coordinating rectangles, and I filled it in with some scrap white cardstock so that I could save some of the specialty cardstock. And then we'll adhere that to the front of our 5x7 card. I had done the wax seal in glitz gold and a mixture of solid white and pearlized white, and that created this beautiful seal, which that die, the sealed twine, really works well. We're going to use some more sentiments from the Holding Your Heart sentiments. I have picked 3 of them. One's going to go on the inside and 2 will go on the front. And I could have done 3 sentiments. There was room. This actually really worked out well though. I'm adding extra cardstock layers behind the 2 that are going to go on the front. And I had originally planned to have "Hello, my friend. You are simply wonderful" be the sentiments on the front. Well, I got carried away, distracted listening to the murder mystery podcast that I had going, and added extra cardstock layers behind the wrong sentiment. But you know what? It still works. It says, "Hello, my friend. I am so glad I know you." And we'll adhere those to the front, and they are purposely kittywampus. I did not want them to be straight. I wanted this to have a very artistic and loose feeling to it. And yeah, I achieved that. Now for the inside, I took one of the postage collage elements that I had added lunar paste in Slippery When Wet, and I adhere that to the inside. It happens to be the heart. And we'll adhere the sentiment, "You are simply wonderful," right below it on the inside of the card. These are pretty straight. Then we're going to take some gorgeous golden baubles from Trinity Stamps. These are halfback pearls in 4 different sizes. And you can use the fashion gold baubles from Spellbinders. Those work also. I just don't happen to have those. I have these, and as long as I have these, I'm not going to purchase something else. But I will link to the other ones. I'm not even sure you can get these from Trinity Stamps anymore. There is the completed card number 10. I hope you enjoyed these as much as I enjoyed creating them. I had a blast creating these cards, playing with all the mixed media. If you did enjoy it, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Perfect time to do that now. Leave me a comment. Tell me whatever you want to tell me about this video or whatever you want to tell me. If you're interested in any of the products that I used today, check that description box below. There will be a link to the list. And until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.